Hi all, let's have a look at another fantastically instructive attacking game. This game is Svetozar Gligoric against Tigran Petrosian, played in the Belgrade tournament of 1954, round 19. Let's have a look at this game, but before we do, actually, let's say a few words about Gligoric in particular, because I believe I have mentioned quite a bit about Petrosian in the past. Gligoric was a Serbian and Yugoslav chess grandmaster. He won the championship of Yugoslavia a record 12 times and is considered one of the best players ever from Serbia. In 1958 he was declared the best athlete of Yugoslavia. In the 50s and 60s he was one of the top players in the world. So this game, 1954, he's around his peak. He was also among the world's most popular players owing to his globe-trotting tournament schedule and a particularly engaging personality, reflected in the title of his autobiography, which you can get from Amazon, by the way, called I Play Against Pieces. So that's without any hostility towards the opponent and not differently against different players for psychological reasons. So he liked to play the board and not the man. He was born in Belgrade to a rather poor family. According to his recollections, his first exposure to chess was as a small child, watching patrons play in a neighbourhood bar. He began to play at the age of 11 when taught by a boarder taken in by his mother. His father had died by this time, and lacking a chess set, he very resourcefully carved himself a chess set from the corks of wine bottles. So yeah, quite staggering that he started a little bit late compared to other top players, and he was really determined to get good at the game, and even did that for pieces. A fantastic story. So here, okay, this is 1954. D4 from Svetozar Gligoric, and we have Petrosian playing knight f6. After c4, c5, we have d5, and now a check Benoni, e5. This closes the centre, knight c3, d6, e4, knight bd7, and now knight f3. Nowadays it seems quite trendy, is g3. Sometimes strategically black wants to exchange that bishop for that bishop, and if black gets in a bishop g5 and a bishop swap, it's thought to be something that black wants. g3 here seems to offer white the possibility of quite a solid position on the king side, and for example this position white can maintain quite a grip on this diagonal with a slight advantage. So maybe that's an interesting way that modern players like to play against the Czech Benoni. So anyway, here we have knight f3, a6, a4, sorry, you might think a4, not yet, bishop e2, bishop e7, both sides castle, knight e1, knight e8, knight d3, knight c7, and here a4 is played. We have rook b8, bishop e3, and now black plays that strategic idea, trying to exchange off the dark square bishops. We have queen d2, bishop takes, queen takes. So is that a strategic goal, which means it should be fine for black? We have h6. One thing you could argue, though, sometimes these bad bishops, they do add solidity to the position. So with the departure of that bishop, you could say that this structure is slightly more fragile. There are two ways of challenging the fragility of this structure. b4 and f4 seem to be the major strategic breaks. But you might think, well, f4 is fraught with strategic risk of giving black a strong central e5 square. So that has to be factored in as well. It's not as easy as all that. But the first thing white does here is actually clamp down the counterplay a bit with a5. Now, there's a price to be paid now for b5, but Tigran Petrosian plays it anyway, b5. He's incurring some structural damage, but he gets some piece activity potentially. If instead he had just played queen g5, maybe white just takes and then plays for b4, and this looks as though that would really challenge the structure. And if b5 here, this position, this would seem quite favourable for white. So anyway, Petrosian immediately played b5, didn't mess around with queen g5, which would be a perk of h6. We have a takes, knight takes, so you can see some structural damage here. b3, protecting that c-pawn, rook a8. And now this strategic break is actually played here, f4. The knights are not that far away from rerouting to e5, but with this knight on d3, e5 is quite under pressure now from white anyway. E takes, queen takes. And in fact, there's a big strategic risk for black here of an immediate e5 in this position. And black kind of clamps down on that with f6. Downside, it weakens the light squares a bit more. And, you know, this could be the favourable strategic bishop exchange, to exchange off here this bishop for that bishop to weaken these squares a bit further. As an alternative, instead of f6, which you might regard as a not a pleasant move, queen g5, just there's a weakness to the last move, just take here. There's no problem there. Rook b8 instead. If e5 comes, this position is nasty. In fact, f7 is a target on that f file. And this could be horrendous positioning for black. That is huge position. And in fact, white could take out that knight and just get a gigantic position. Yeah, that's not worth considering at all. So f6 seems to be like a lesser evil move. Just clamp down against e5. At least Petrosian has got rid of the dark square bishop, otherwise it would have been a total prisoner in that pawn chain. We have now knight d1. This is a fantastic maneuver to go to e3, to go to f5. Try and celebrate those knight squares. That will be hitting d6 and supporting things like queen g3 and other things. We have queen e7, knight e3. And in fact, Petrosian plays another kind of radical forcing move, g5. If he just plays rook b8, then maybe white plays bishop g4 first to soften the f5 square before the knight lands on that square. And even just occupy f5 like this is a big strategic light square grip. So we have g5, but now actually knight f5 is played, hitting the queen here. And black took here. If black indulges g takes, then you can see the structure is a total wreck. This is unpalatable. The knight could go to c6. That's going to be a total nightmare for black, this position structurally. It doesn't bear thinking about. So bishop takes, queen takes. And you might think, well, hasn't Tigran Petrosian wriggled his way out? He's certainly someone who hates losing. And maybe he felt, you know, he's got some chances here. He's got a semi-open e-file. Knight's holding a6. Maybe the other knight can come to e5. Maybe he can put pressure on e4. We have queen g4, rook a8. So maybe Tigran Petrosian thinks his position is a little bit, you know, maybe lacking in space, but solid enough. We have rook f5. Now knight d7. Rook af1. White is piling up on that f file. We have rook e7. But now trouble sets in fact. Guess what white plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds to pause the video, what would you play with white here in this position? Okay, a strategic break b4, regardless of black having that e5 square. We have c takes. In fact, now, from an engine point of view, c5 is very, very thematic looking in its play, but just before we get into that, knight takes b4 technically seems to have a lot of perks to it to go immediately to that c6 square. For example, like this, white should be guaranteeing an advantage. For example, this position, there are some fascinating lines where white's light square control and that perched knight on c6 seem rather effective. For example, here, there are some fascinating variations where those light squares are big tactically. For white, they're tactically very useful. For example, this position, there's a lot going on light squares. There's two connected passed pawns there, big advantage for white. So it seems as though this is a very, very plausible idea. Knight takes b4 just to go into c6. Let's look at this once more. There's some fascinating stuff here. Queen takes h7 is also interesting here for e5. This position is also an advantage for white because of the two connected passed pawns. So yeah, there are a few ways to roam after knight takes b4. And also something else I would like to show you here in this. Instead of a5 as an example, if queen takes e4, there's a fascinating bishop g4 here, and queen takes h6. I find it fascinating how white can really crash through there on the f file. We just step that back. If queen e3 check here, and knight e4, queen g6 check, queen f5, this position is going to be good. It's a crazy line. It's an absolutely crazy line where black gets a bit of counterplay. Yeah. So there's all sorts of very, very interesting stuff actually, which emerges on knight takes b4. c5 was played, and I think there's a specific reason. Technically, this might not be optimal. h5 forcing move is played. The queen goes to g3. h3 apparently might be an interesting alternative as well here. On rook takes, to actually pounce with queen f3, trebling on the f file. For example, like this. Apparently this is very, very nice. The f file is kind of very, very strong for white here. And in fact here there's a fantastic tactical move, knight e5, which either gets through d6 or distracts the second rank. So d6 is good, and that's crashing through. Yeah, or rook takes, then the second rank of black is weak. But also here, so if king h8, queen f8 is mating, and the other snag here is if king h7, then there's queen takes h5. So fascinating stuff with this move, queen h3. Which can transpose into the game actually, because in the game after queen g3 rook takes, white can still play this move queen f3. He didn't actually. He played c6. c6 is very interesting as well, but queen f3 would transpose into the same sort of thing. And if say c6, knight b8 there, again this f file is really quite crushing, as that can be seen. So anyway, in fact c6 was played. We have rook takes e2, queen takes d6, and here black perhaps misses a chance for near equality. Petrosian played knight b5. It's a fascinating position here. White has sacrificed a piece, has two connected passed pawns, but these pawns actually on dark squares, and the dark squares in general, seem rather fragile in this position, because white has those doubled rooks on the f file. There are focal points on the f file where white's really quite strong on the f file in general. But it was a moment here after queen takes. This particular moment was queen e7. It seems as though this technically might have given black a chance to survive the position. For example, here after queen e4 and then h4, these passed pawns might not be quick enough because of the incoming pawn. You know, if h3, then rook e3 threatens, rook takes h3 mating, and if here, then it's a very, very interesting position where in fact black might be able to hold the position. It's fascinating stuff. But Petrosian didn't play queen e7. He played knight b5, so that's a lucrative tempo gain. White takes on b4, and now this is the last chance saloon. This really is the last chance saloon for this queen e7 move, which wasn't played. Petrosian played knight b8. If we get into queen e7 here, again, it seems as though, okay, there's two connected passed pawns, but then now after taking it's not. And after knight c5, apparently this might be okay. There's nothing too much to fear here. You know, white is actually a pawn down actually there, so that should be at least equal. But knight b8 was played, and we have an absolutely brilliant combination now that is played by Svetozar Gligoric in this position. I'm wondering if you can spot it. If I give you 10 seconds to pause the video here for 200 points, what does white play in this position, you think? So white to play here. Okay, big focal point on the F file is revealed. Rook takes g5 check. So here king f7 is virtually, it's forced. If king h8, that neglects the rook, so queen takes is mating. So we have king f7, and now another fantastic move. White to play here for another 200 points. 10 seconds. What does white play in this position, you think? Okay, yeah, the king is an expensive protector of that rook, and it can be lured away with this tactic, luring the king away from that rook. Rook takes f6. And you might think, well, hold on, this king's rather carnivorous, isn't it? It's going to gobble both rooks. And in fact, this is white's intent. Let the king gobble this other rook, because there's a key move here. Can you guess? 10 seconds to pause the video for 200 points. Okay, h4 check. Yeah, this is a forced mate. The game ended here, because if king takes h4, there's queen f4 checkmate, and if king g6 here, then there's just knight f4 checkmate. Yeah, all the escape squares have been covered there. Let me give you a little bit more context. Fantastic game. I played this through a few times, and I realized this is a little bit of a masterpiece. This must be in Gligoric's top 100 games. His lifetime scores against world champions is actually rather impressive. Against Max Ower, +2, didn't lose any, drew 5. Mikhail Botvinnik, he won 2, lost 2, drew 6. Smyslov, he won 6, he lost 8, drew 28. Tigran Petrosian, he won 8 times actually against Tigran Petrosian. This is one of those. Lost 11, drew 19. Mikhail Tal, 1, 2, okay, he lost 10, drew 22. He also, he won against Fischer 4 times, lost 7, drew 8. So yeah, he could beat several of the world chess champions. He was a candidate several times, but maybe there were stronger players in the era, so he never quite broke through to become a world champion. But he was a world champion candidate, one of the strongest players in the world for sure. And, he has a great legacy in opening theory, lots of ideas in the King's Indian defense. And in fact, inspirations, I've seen some of his very inspirational games, particularly very, very dynamic, aggressive ideas, which leads to him having very spectacular games in those variations, even against the world chess champions. So a really, really fantastic player, perhaps underrepresented on YouTube. Svetozar Gligoric. Hope you enjoyed this. Okay, and this is one of the featured games in that Art of Attack chess course. It was in the section of attacking against the kind of virtually uncastled king, where the king's not really being left in peace. The king was certainly not left in peace here. So if you want to check that out, that's at Kingscrusher TV/Art of Attack, with lots of video content by Ginger GM, Simon Williams, who is a fantastic attacking grandmaster in his own right. Okay. Comments, questions, likes, shares, subscribes, all appreciated. Thanks so much.
Every battle is won by preparation. We've taken one of the most popular chess books ever written and rewired it for the modern player. The Art of Attack. Learn with Chessable's state-of-the-art move trainer technology, presented by myself, Grandmaster Simon Williams. I'll talk you through 29 hours worth of educational video content. From attacking the uncastled king, bishop sacrifices, diagonal attacks, and classic pawn storms. Paint your opponent's king into a corner with the Art of Attack.